of all the questions I get asked about living in Japan, the two main ones are, why did I come over to Japan? And what is it like living in Japan? And so I thought, you know what? Let's take one of these topics, kind of branch it out just a little bit, obviously, because there's subtopics to a lot of questions and everything, and start a video on that. And kind of also just a good way to kind of start this channel's very first video off. So we're going to go over what it's like to live in Japan as somebody who has lived in both kind of the Kansai western parts of Japan and then in the main city of Tokyo and outside of Tokyo. And today's topic, I want to focus on both in Tokyo, in the city, and in the, well, non-city, I guess, you know, more of the rural area of Tokyo, the parts of Tokyo that no one really tells you about, even though in my personal opinion, it's a little bit better. But we're going to get into both the highs and the ups and the lows and the downs and everything. This will probably become a part 2 video. There probably will be something added on. I don't know how long this is going to go. I've never done something like this before, so please give me all of your opinions and feedback and everything in the comments below, because I'm excited to try something out like this, and I want to share my experiences with you. So without further ado, let's go and get started. So as I sat down and I really started to think about how do I want to show you guys the differences between the suburbs of Tokyo and the middle of the city Tokyo, because I have lived in both now. My original thought was like, well, what in the world do people do? And so I was like looking around at other YouTubers and everything, and I'm thinking to myself, no, why don't we just make this easy, right? I'll just, you know, pop up a photo here and just be like, okay, boom, here's one photo, here's another, you make the call, right? And clearly that's not the way to go about this. So what I did though is I took my GoPro and I just started grabbing a bunch of different scenery, both again in the main city where both I work and where I have lived, and then also just in other areas that I have looked at when I've been, you know, searching for apartments, where I currently live right now, which is outside the city. I'd say it's about 50 minutes, give or take, from my current place now, walking, catching the train. By the way, Japan, we use the train all the time here, so you keep that in mind. And then getting to work mainly, right? So what I want to first do though is I want to go in looking into this dead center of the city, right? And by the way, as a quick note, I will say here, if you are somebody who has lived in the city in another country, you know, whether you're from the US, Canada, Europe, anywhere, right? It's pretty much the same no matter where you go, right? The city and the suburbs are going to be very different, more rural areas compared to the center of the metropolises of the world, you know, obviously very different, right? And everyone's going to have their own wants and their dislikes and their likes about both of those settings and everything. And so that can be applied here, but I do feel that a lot of people take for granted sometimes for Tokyo especially, and definitely more down in Kansai as well when I live there, that, you know, yeah, being in the center of the city has its perks, obviously. You know, for example, if you are going in and currently right now you're seeing downtown center of Tokyo, basically. We're in an area called Meguro right now, which is not Tokyo Station itself, but I mean, it is one of the most crowded areas and actually probably one of the most wealthiest areas in the entire place as well. So this is kind of a cool idea to show you guys what some of the apartments look like as you are seeing through my GoPro right now. And it can make life really easy, right? You are very close to a station, you are close to grocery stores, you are close to a lot of convenies. By the way, convenies are very cool little shops that you can find pretty much anywhere in Japan, right? You guys, many people have heard of 7-Eleven, but there are other ones like Family Mart and Lawson and everything. You can do everything here. You can buy food, you can pay your bills, you can buy tickets to go to Disneyland if you want to. It's ridiculous, and there's a ton of stuff you can do at these places. I'm not even scratching the surface right now. But anyway, getting back to just like the center of the city and everything, right? You know, as always, you're close to everything, right? If my friend was to call me up and be like, hey, want to go grab a burger, hey, you want to go to karaoke or something, right? I can just be like, all right, cool. See you in like what, 5 minutes, 10 minutes or something like that. Whereas if you're living further outside anywhere, you know, it's like, okay, well, hang on, I got to get dressed. I've got to catch a train now. I've got to take, you know, half-hour commute in to get there. And that can obviously take a lot of time up, and it can also make you have to leave early sometimes. And so there's a lot of good things for when I was living in the center of Tokyo. I lived down in the Shinagawa area, for anyone who doesn't know. And it was a cool little fun experience. It was definitely different. It was the very first time I'd ever lived in a city. And growing up, I was never much of a city guy. And any of my friends, my family can tell you, just like, nope, he did not like the city. I mean, he could stand it, but overall, it wasn't for him. And then I lived in the center of one of the most busiest metropolises in the entire world for over a year. So that was something. That was definitely something. But looking at what I personally liked about it, though, obviously, you know, being really close to the train, that was that was very easy to get into work. I could wake up at like almost 7 o'clock half the time if I wanted to, quickly take a shower, grab some breakfast, and boom, I was out the door. And I didn't personally, for my personal commute, I didn't have to deal with the crazy trains that you'll see in pictures and videos where, you know, you get people getting shoved in by the conductors and everything. I didn't have to deal with that because everyone got off at my station, and I was able to then just take a train up 2 stations, switch once, take 2 more stops, and boom, I was at work. It was really nice, I will admit. It's definitely something I do miss from my current location that I live in now. But you know, in terms of the ups and the downs, that is one of the ups that I definitely took away from living in the city. Another one was obviously being very close to everything. If I needed to go get a haircut, if I wanted to go to the grocery store, if I had to just go shopping or something, meet a friend, anything, or if I was showing somebody around and be like, what are some cool places to see inside the city? 5-10 minute train ride around. That was it. That is how it went. And it was, again, extremely easy to get around. And you know, again, because there's so much English, even if you don't speak Japanese. And by the way, I will get into this in a different video talking about, do you need Japanese to survive in Japan? That I'm definitely looking forward to in terms of making that video. But we're getting off topic here. It's super easy to get around no matter who you are. It really is. I know people who have lived in Japan for years. They don't know any Japanese. I know people who have lived in Japan from other countries, obviously, that don't speak fluent Japanese or in the middle like I am. And it is very easy to get around no matter where you are, talking to somebody, going to a restaurant, the whole 9 yards. So that definitely has its ups.
This is definitely something I prefer not to have to deal with when it comes to living, because if I have my window open, this is all I hear. This is all you're gonna hear most of the day, especially if you're on a main street. So if you're looking for an apartment, make sure you're in the back alley. I know that sounds bad, but in Japan, it's pretty safe.
Now, I do want to talk quickly about the downsides to this, and that is, number one, obviously, costs. As I think most people know, living in the city is very expensive, no matter where you are, right? Any city in the world is going to be more expensive than if you're outside the city. That's, I think, living 101 for most people. But Tokyo especially, there are some apartments that I saw that when I was searching to move and everything, whether it was coming up from the Kansai area to Tokyo, or when I moved from my my last place in Tokyo to more of the suburb rural area, I was looking at a lot of apartments thinking like, okay, maybe I could make this work and live in a place like, you know, that's still downtown. And it's super expensive. A lot of the places are very small. Tokyo has a lot of small apartments. They kind of grade their apartments on a scale of 1, 2, and 3, and then they'll throw on letters determining the room. So for example, you might see something like a 1 LDK, which stands for 1 large kitchen and dining room. You obviously add a 2 on there, then that means there's 2 main rooms along with a large dining kitchen area. If you throw on a 3, etc., etc. So obviously the bigger the number and the more rooms, the more expensive it's going to be, like you'd expect it to be. But Tokyo, like living downtown, like if I looked around my same area, or if I looked around in a different spot that was the same distance from a station, but maybe it was a different station or something, it was gonna be like a 1R to maybe a 1K for easily more money than I was paying at my old place, or what I'm currently paying right now. So that obviously I think is the big downside, right, to living in any city, that if you are on a budget, or if you're just starting off working or anything like that, that can definitely hinder you and make your selection process very, very limited. So that's always something to keep in mind right there. Another one that I personally found myself, not all the time, I would say, because Japan generally isn't too bad, but noise, right? So if you live in the center of the city, you're gonna have people out later, you're gonna have a lot more people around you. Everything is way more compact, especially in Japan, because Japan's such a small country compared to a lot of other ones, and there's a huge population here, and it's very easy to, open your curtains in your apartment and boom, you're like 5 centimeters, sometimes, not luckily mine wasn't, but sometimes, to the next apartment building next to you, and you see a neighbor, brushing their teeth or something like that. So that's always something to consider, that you also have a lot of noise that happens. You have, whether it's little kids, whether it's adults, people out drinking late at night, because there is a big thing here in Japan when it comes to going out with your senpais and your coworkers and going drinking. And so that is something you have to keep in mind, that if maybe you have to try and go to sleep that night and you have to get up early in the morning, or you're somebody who just doesn't go out and party and everything, that, okay, this might not be a good place for you to live, because there's a lot of noise around in the center of the cities and everything. So you're gonna want to be careful about that. And then I would say kind of my big main third point, kind of the downside. Again, it always depends on who you are, but one thing I found was that when I lived in and very close to a lot of things, I was more tempted to buy stuff. And I'm not sure if that's just me. Again, that can be totally different to everybody, but I found that I don't know if pressure is the right word, but just simply because if I was around and I would see something constantly, like if I was walking from one station to another, or if I was walking from work to another station to go home or something, and I would always pass a store or a bunch of stores or anything, I'd be like, all right, you know what? Why don't I pick this up, or I do this? Because it's so simple, right? It's right there. It's just like, oh, yeah, I could just get it tomorrow if I want to, because I'm coming right back here or anything. But it's just like, why not? Let's just pick it up. I'm walking home or something like that, right? I don't have to really plan anything out, in that kind of regard. So I definitely found that, even though now I don't live inside the center of the city or anything, I guess I just tend to spend less money, it seems. I don't know. That might sound like a very kind of weird reason / excuse, or however you might want to look at it, but that's just something I noticed as living inside the center of the city for about a year or so. That's just, something to keep in mind right there. Switching heads now, though, I do want to go outside of the city now, and I want to go into more of the suburbs / rural areas of Tokyo. All right, now I do want to say something right now. The rural side of Tokyo, or outside of Tokyo, is really not that far. If you're from any other country that you have to drive a great distance to get to work or to get anywhere, a 25-minute train ride from the center of the city in Tokyo to where your new apartment is, aka mine now, that's nothing, honestly. It was really funny, actually, kind of a side story real quick. When I was looking for my new apartment, they kept asking me like, wait, a 15-minute walk from your apartment to the station, a 25-minute train ride into the city? I'm like, yeah, is that bad? And they're like, no, it's just unusual. Most people don't want that great distance. They want to be much closer. And I'm like, yeah, but the apartment's this much and it's really nice and it's really big, and a 15-minute walk is nothing for me, because I grew up where, I drove everywhere, or I rode my bike, or I walked to school personally every single day. So, everyone's mileage may vary, but that was just something I found very interesting. So keep that in mind. So as of right now, you're seeing the neighborhood in the area that I currently live in, actually. It's not next to my apartment, but if I walk about 10 minutes away from where I currently live, this is the area that you see. And you might be thinking to yourself, this just looks like a normal neighborhood, and it is. That's the thing. And most people do not think about this type of thing when they think Tokyo. They think giant size skyscrapers, fashion, all that stuff, right? But my address itself, it says Tokyo. I live in the Tokyo prefecture. And this is probably the first main point I want to start talking about what I like about this, is the fact that it's relaxing out here. When you're in the city and everything, and this can be anywhere, but especially in the city, you sometimes feel pressure, or you might feel stressed a lot more times because, you're always hearing things are always happening on and off. And, you know, that can mix in with work and personal life and everything. And just being out here is just, it's a lot more relaxing for me personally. And I probably sound like an old man right now by saying this, like, man, get out of here, man. But it's just really nice. And I think I struck gold with the area that I'm in, because there's a lot of families. There's also a bunch of single people. There's a bunch of, you know, people that are dating and, you know, elderly, and it's a nice combo and everything. There's parks around me. There's rivers. There's, you know, animals and everything. And so it's a lot of fun to be around here. And it's really cool just to be able to walk around and be a part of it, which is really fun. Obviously, the second one now that I really have to come to, and this has to be probably my biggest main point, is that if you're somebody like me who's from a different country and you've lived over here, and maybe you're used to having a bigger house or an apartment, you know, bigger apartment or anything, and then you come to Japan, you're like, man, everything's like, what, 2/3 the size of what you're used to. My apartment is actually pretty big for Japan, but it has everything that I need. It's got, I have what's called a 2 LDK apartment now. I got a nice living room. I've got a really big kitchen. I love my kitchen. I've got a really nice bedroom. I got a nice bathroom, a nice washroom and everything. And then I've got this room that I'm currently in right now, which is where my YouTube setup is, right? So it works out really well. If I was living in the dead center of the city and I wanted this particular apartment, it would be double, if not triple the price that I currently pay right now. And so I just love it. I absolutely love it. For the price that I get, and then, you know, on top of that stuff, like even electricity and internet, that's nothing here. And it works out really well for where I currently am in my life. And so it works out. And honestly, even if I was making more money and I could go afford those places that were dead in the center of the city, I would probably stay here. I mean, it's a great place. It's new. I mean, this apartment building is only like 10 years old. I would definitely live here for a long time. And I really hope to, you know, moving forward and everything. And then the third thing that I do want to talk about is, I think, just getting to know people more personally. And this isn't something that you can't do in the city. And obviously, when you're so close to everybody and you see a lot of things, it's very easy to do that. But I found that I've really gotten to know my neighbors here a lot. It's been a little tricky with the pandemic that's been going on and everything. But when I'm just out going for a walk and I see my neighbor walking with their dogs or something, like, I'll strike up a conversation. And I find that my neighbors here, compared to being in the center of the city, are just way more relaxed. And no, they're not just, you know, all retired out here or anything. I've met people who are my age that are working out here, because there are other apartment buildings around here that you would almost generally find in the city, right? Your typical just one room kind of apartments, and boom, there's like 20 of them here. And the next thing you know, there's like 20 more houses that you would, you know, look at as a normal neighborhood and everything. And I've met those people, and I find that a lot more people are relaxed like that. And it's really cool just to talk to people. So those are generally the differences that I have seen, though, when it comes to both the inside the city of Tokyo and outside the city of Tokyo. So I think what I want to do is I want to leave it here, and I want to ask you guys a question. Whether you know, if you happen to live in Japan, by the way, let me know, where do you live if you happen to live in this country. But whether you're from, you know, America, if you're from Europe, if you're from other parts of Asia, Australia, New Zealand, anywhere, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments when it comes to living in the city or living outside the city. Which one do you prefer and why? Just let me know. I want to get a conversation going with a lot of you guys. Just kind of see, you know, where you're from and everything. And so I think that'd be really cool to kind of see the international family that maybe a lot of us potentially could be. So anyway, guys, that's going to be it for this little video, though. The next topic that I want to talk about is to kind of go about what it's like for a foreigner to live in Japan. So we're going to still kind of continue with the whole inside the city and outside the city thing. Again, this will probably be going into a part 2 type thing. And then we'll be eventually going into, do you need Japanese to be out here? Okay. And then later down the road as well, I also want to start doing videos on learning Japanese, tips and tricks about that, and studying with you guys, because my Japanese is not perfect by any means. And so I hope you guys are looking forward to those, and I'm really excited to make those videos. So anyway, guys, that is going to be it for the video, though. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. As always, leave a like if you like the video. Subscribe if you happen to be new. Until next time, everyone, I will see you all in the next one. Jane.